form this relationship with the client from the time that they come in to the time that that car leaves.
Some of these relationships they have are long-term relationships.
It's similar to a marriage.
It's something that you think about when you're going to bed at night.
There's a lot of give and take.
You know, you make that commitment and that's it.
It's the first thing that comes into your mind when you wake up in the morning.
How much time and effort you put in is exactly what you'll get in return.
The relationship the client has with their vehicle is very much like a marriage.
There's highs and lows.
It's all about the satisfaction that you're going to get of a job well done.
The relationship we have with Gil and Linda and the vehicles is like a marriage.
That relationship the client has with that vehicle, we share that with them. So we're both married to the ride.
Gil and Linda are married to the rides.
Often in this industry, we have to get really creative with the cars that we're doing. Not so much with the restorations, because all that stuff is supposed to fit where it's supposed to fit. But when you're doing a resto mod, when you think creativity, you think of the overall design. Well, it's not just the design of the outside, it's the design of the engine bay, the interior, and all the utility portions of it that you really have to, sit there, and sometimes it's a head scratcher. The only way you really figure it out is to actually do it all. But the important thing is to do it before you paint anything. Today we have another 55 Chevy that arrived at the shop. It is a two-door hardtop. It is not a sedan delivery. And this one is going to be completely different. We have our Roadster Shop chassis that this car will be married to.
This chassis is amazing Roadster Shop chassis. The body is in really good shape too. The engine that's going in is a supercharged LS.
Today we're working on the 1955 Chevy. We are unpacking the frame. We are putting the drums and brake hardware on there.
And then we do have to assemble the rear calipers, the front calipers, put the rotors on the hubs, and also attach some of the braided lines from the calipers to the chassis. They already have the hard lines attached on the chassis. We just have to connect the calipers to those with the new braided lines.
And I would say within the first week, the plan is to, obviously, we want to make sure that it fits right. We are going to have to cut out the tunnel. And the idea is that we make a new tunnel, we possibly have to, make a new floor. And I'm sure there's going to be some alterations in the trunk. But Bob and Hank are ready to go, and honestly, I think this is going to move pretty quick. We have some other things planned for it. We're leaving, it's a two-tone, so we're going to be leaving the red that's on there. The client loves it, but we're going to be making the white portion bronze, and I think that's just really going to set it off nice.
The client wants to kind of do like a race-inspired / street vehicle at the same time, so we're going to mix a bunch of those two elements together to make a really, really good classic-looking 55 Bel Air.
Don't get me wrong, I love a fully restored vehicle. I love restoring interiors, but nothing gets our creative juices going like a custom. Case in point, we have this 1970 C10 truck, and we're going all out on this one. We're getting very creative on the materials we're selecting. Very high-grade leather, we're doing some Alcantara. We're also selecting the right vendor, like Fessler, which makes a one-piece fiberglass headliner, and it makes a beautiful dash overlay. So it allows us to make the vehicle more modern looking, especially when you're using these modern materials.
So this 1970 C10 that we're working on right now, we're taking a different approach to the back wall. We wanted to do something that was very stealthy. What I tried to do was to hide everything so that way it looked factory. I made a cover board, built a grill for it. We covered it in what's called reticulated foam, and then we had the Alcantara perforated. So we bonded those two together and then covered the grill. So if you look at it, it pretty much looks like a solid wall.
Next up on this C10, now that we got the fabrication rolling, Guido and Tyler have to get in there, review the back wall, make sure everybody understands how things come apart, how things go together. They got to check the tolerances for the leather and make sure that once it's all done, it fits 100% the way it's intended to.
55 Chevy, we have a roadster shop chassis that we'll be using, which is so low to the ground. Gil picked this really low to the ground. With that comes its challenges.
Today on the 1955 Chevy, we're going to be taking off the body off the old frame. Hank's going to be taking the motor out, and we're going to be prepping it, getting it ready to put the new frame on.
Bob and Hank have to be a little creative in what they're doing, as in taking out the floor in the tunnel, you know, laying it on there, test fitting, recreating the floor.
Well, we wanted to make it look like it was aesthetically pleasing, not only just, you know, throwing a hunk of sheet metal in there. We just wanted to look nice, and the bead rolling adds strength and durability to it. So on top of the fabricated tunnel that I made for it, it was a little bit of a process, you know, making everything fit properly. Hank and I, we wound up doing a lot of extra bracing underneath to accept the, you know, obviously going to be a larger motor, a lot more horsepower.
Week one on our 55 Chevy, it's been crazy. We have the entire floor cut out and a new floor. The tunnel was out, new tunnel. We did mini tubs in the back so we can get up to 14-inch tires in the back. There was one of those spare tire metal pieces that the spare tire actually fits on its side instead of laying. That had to get cut out so we could fit it onto the chassis. That's done. That piece of the floor is replaced. It's crazy. The client already came by and he cannot believe how much work's been done. I mean, everything just fits spot on. It looks so nice.
Getting creative goes beyond that. We can get really creative on the center console, what components we have in there, all those gadgets that are hidden. Like I've said before, you know, when you have these pickup trucks, you really have to step up your game because there's a very compact area for the interior and you really got to nail it. So on the C10 project, the console has certain elements, right? So we have to go up into the dash area. We have to include some AC vents. There's a center compartment section that's needed. We have to go ahead and put some other components in there, like the heated seat buttons, the shifter control, and then a power port.
We also wanted some kind of hidden door that we could, you know, access the drive control as well as your window switches.
One of the requests that the client did have is he didn't want to see any of these buttons. So what Tyler's going to have to do is go ahead and design a sliding door that could be easily opened. The shifter control is there, and then it could be closed, and then it's going to look nice and clean and simple.
I like the idea of a bread box door instead of just a single flat panel that slides up and down.
The other thing the client was requesting on this particular project was some modern elements to it. So I think on this center console, we're going to go ahead and add a newer Chevy Silverado cup holder in there. It's got some chrome trim on it, which will go well with the rest of the elements on this project. So on the C10, next up is, once again, carpet work. Guido is tasked, as always, to get this carpet done. He's got the padding all laid down. So now it's time for him to get the carpet on the machine, stitch it all up as a one piece, and then start laying it in the truck.
All right, next thing for today is to get the engine and transmission mated together and put into the chassis to figure out that we have clearance from the firewall. The bell housing doesn't need any modification with the car.
I wanted to make sure that it had a very low profile. It wrapped nice and close to the transmission, but not, you know, touching it, obviously. One part that was a little bit extra tricky was I needed to set in the firewall so to accept some of the motor. So I had to, I think it was about 2 inches I had to go in. So I had to make an oval shape and then kind of curl in the metal to accept the extra motor that was sticking out.
And then I'm going to go and put the AC box inside under the dash in the vehicle and start to mock that up and modify anything I need to do to fit that. I'm going to try to tuck it up as high as I can so you don't see anything from there. Usually sometimes it's on the passenger side and you can kind of see it like hanging down a little bit. I'm going to try to put it in the center of the car above the tunnel, and that way you won't see anything. When you look under the dash, it'll be nice and flat and clean. So I'm going to be putting a new bulkhead on the firewall to have the coolant and AC lines pass through inside the car. And also I'm going to be working on routing some of that as clean as possible from the AC compressor to that bulkhead, all the lines.
Koba's going to be working on the firewall for the 55. We did have to move it back to accommodate the larger motor that's in there. We also had a couple things that we had to take out. We didn't need all the holes that are in there. You know, the AC bulkhead is off to the side, so that had to get, moved. The original, where all the wiring was coming through for the AC system that was there was like a really bulky system. So today Bob is working on the 55 Chevy bumpers. We decided to go away from the traditional bumper, obviously something that, when you do a restoration, you look to keep the original bumpers. This is more of a resto mod, so we've chosen to keep everything really clean, very streamlined.
On the bumpers for the 55 Chevy, we wound up getting original pieces. They come in 3 pieces. We wanted to make them wrap in around the car rather than kind of hang off the car like the factory did. So I wound up molding them, welding them together so they fit nice and tight and snug on the body.
He's working very diligently on tucking everything in, smoothing everything out, getting rid of the bumperettes.
From the factory, they usually use carriage bolts to hold the bumper on, and what I had done was I eliminated all the holes that are on the bumper and fabricated inside fasteners in which to hold the bumper on. So as you see it from the side, you don't see any carriage bolts or fasteners of any sort holding the bumper on.
Now that Bob and I got the radiator assembly and from Cold Case, we got that mounted into the chassis. Everything looks really good. Now I could start to actually route the AC lines and the heater core lines to that. And also we have a supercharged engine going in this, so there is a low temperature radiator that is mounted in the front also. So I do have to start to mock up those and figure out where I want to route all those lines and pumps and reservoirs for all that stuff too. I just unboxed the front grille support, and it also holds the latch for the hood. Since we modified the grille support here to fit a bigger radiator and condenser, this is from Cold Case, I wanted to make sure that this will still fit in here, because on the bottom of here I do have to add a low temperature radiator actually for the cooling system for the supercharge. So that's what I was about to do right now, to see if this will actually give us enough clearance to do what I have to do. Okay, so I will have to modify this little bracket here. Now, I would love it if I can get this radius on the other side, so I'm actually going to try to spin it around and reattach this bracket the other way. Now, even if I have to move the hole in the bottom where it bolts to, because I really need this clearance here to fit that low temperature radiator. It's about 1.5 inches thick, and currently I probably have maybe about 1/2 inch of distance between the back of this. Reposition the plate up top, so it'll give me a little bit more room to actually put that low temperature radiator for the supercharger in.
So on this Chevy C10 project, because it does have a twin turbo LS motor in it and a racing chassis, the client wanted some seats in there that will go ahead and make sure he stays put in there. So we got some Brougham racing seats. These are the Viper X seats, and we're gonna go ahead and strip those down. Julio's gonna go ahead and take those stripped down seats. We're gonna get some leather on there. We're gonna add some Alcantara accents. Keeping the same kind of stitch design, but we're gonna make it, again, give it that modern luxury feel to it, but make it safe for him to drive as well because of the horsepower. So recently on a client visit for the C10, he informed us that he wants all his vehicles to have a special lettering and number to coincide with the vehicle. So on the kick panel, we're gonna incorporate some speaker grills. We're gonna go ahead and use the Boss laser machine to make that happen. So we need to lay out the design and kind of get that number etched in there and then finish that piece as well. So we got a little work to do creatively. We got to make sure it matches the rest of the vehicle. So for that, we're going to go ahead and turn to Tyler and see what he comes up with.
So the kick panels in the C10, I did something a little bit different for me. I played around with the idea of using the laser in a different way that I haven't seen very often. Most of the time when I see a laser, it's really point and shoot. It cuts it straight up and down, and you're gonna get a 2D part, and then you can manipulate it on a router, you can do things.
Working with Tyler on this project and other projects, it's great because he has a very creative mind, but he also has a very structured mind as far as how to get it done and what's within the limits of getting it done.
With a laser, normally when it's running, it's shooting straight through the material. If you know the machine and you know how to adjust it correctly, you can make sure that the laser doesn't have the power to fully penetrate your material. So I used that concept in making little badge emblem that basically took away all the excess material around the lettering that I wanted, and then we just painted inside the pocket over the lettering, so it just gives it that little bit more of a three-dimensional aspect versus just something that's just scored on the face of it. Get a little bit different, a little bit more creative.
For me, like, you can't structure creativity. Like, it has to be free-flowing.
The mechanic actually has to be pretty creative when it comes to the resto mods. And it's not a cookie cutter. It's not, you know, we pull this one out, we put this one in. It's kind of like creativity meets critical thinking. One thing may look really nice, but it's not going to be useful. It's not going to work for what you're trying to, you know, to accomplish, especially from an aesthetic point of view, that when you look in there, everything has to be neat and clean. So how is he going to accomplish that? And that's where the creativity comes from. You're starting from ground zero. You're starting from scratch. You know, you have to really think about how the car is going to be utilized, how the customer wants this to look, and how you're going to accomplish that. And it takes time. It really takes time. It takes thoughtfulness, and it really does take a lot of skill to figure out how you're going to do that and how you're going to accomplish that.
So the goal here with this mock-up that I do on these vehicles is I'd rather do it before any paint or body work gets done, because, you know, there could be some holes that have to be drilled or holes that I don't need anymore. You know, there could be some brackets and one that I have to put somewhere where they weren't before. I like to run all the AC lines, the heater lines, the fuel lines, all the wiring and whatnot into the vehicle too, so that when we go to fire it up, everything works great. We can disassemble the vehicle, and then you know, the body work can get done, painted, put back together again, and then when it's time to reassemble the mechanical, everything goes a lot smoother because it was already mocked up ahead of time, and that just saves a lot of time and any damaging of paint or body panels. Next, I'm going to be test fitting the headers in the 55 Chevy. We got a nice set of Hedman headers, and I want to make sure that they actually fit in here due to the fact that it has a different motor and different frame. The main thing is usually the driver's side is the issue, where the steering column and steering shaft comes down. This also has a rack and pinion front end, so it does change where the angle of that shaft is going to be. Okay, I just laid the header inside, and actually it does look like it clears everything. I'm just going to put 2 bolts in just to hold it, and then take a look at the angle for that steering shaft and the rack. So yeah, it actually does fit pretty good in there. It clears the frame, clears the transmission, clears the front engine mount, nice. Now I'm just going to get a test fit piece to see the angle of the steering shaft. It does look like I will have to add another universal joint close to the frame to kick the top of the shaft away from the header pipe. But not a big deal, I've done that many times before. And then that'll be a clear shot right into the end of the steering shaft. All right, now that the headers are test fitted in here, we will be removing them and sending them out to powder coat, because the client does want them powder coated black, high temp powder coat. Now that I'm done test fitting the headers, I'm going to get back on continuing doing some wiring to the car and get that ready.
We have a new steering column that's going in, so we had to make an adjustment to that, just kind of move it over and get a few extra the steering joints just to make all that work nice, and so nothing actually hits.
visors are done, seats have been done. So we got to wrap these pieces in the back in leather. Dash is in. He's going to put the vents on. We did all the suede headliner, suede A-pillars, suede here. This is all perforated in the back because we got the speakers behind it, so you don't even see it. We're going to do perforation on the side of the console. And then Tyler made some custom speaker grills for the kick panels. So just assembly time now. That's it. So 2 more days. That's it. Now that Tyler has the door panels for the C10 fabricated, he's going to hand it off to Guido. Guido's going to have to go ahead and pad that with some Landau foam, figure out where the stitch line's going to be, wrap it, and then get the armrest done. So a few more steps involved before they're ready to go on the truck.
The door panel, the armrest, the hidden handle that I put in there, it stemmed from the customer giving us ideas. Simple looking, but there's a lot of pockets, there's a lot of trim work that's underneath all the padding and the upholstery. The door kind of became a little bit more fluid towards the end. And then it really was about just trying to design it so that way it was functional as far as disassembly is concerned. You never want to give somebody a part that they need to upholster and it doesn't fit.
So we're on the 1970 C10 pickup truck, and we're down to the last few items. Guido's got to go ahead and get the door panels in, and then Tyler's got to jump in, get the console all set, which means getting the AC vents in place, getting the shifter mounted. This is an electronic shifter, so that has to go in. Power window switches and heated seat controls. So a few more things left, and this one's going to be heading home.
Scott and Rich, I have to tell you, that's like a nice little team. I love pairing them up together with all the years of knowledge that Rich has and all of the, I'm gonna say extreme intelligence that Scott has. It just kind of, everything marries really well together, and they both bounce ideas off each other, and they're both like, oh, let's try this, what if we try this? So, you know, it's a nice marriage. You know, I ain't married to the rides, right? So they're going to be working on the wiring for the 55. So that's going to be happening next.
All right, for the 55 Chevy, we will be putting the wiring into the trunk instead of under the dash, and the battery also, instead of being on the firewall in the engine compartment, we're going to put it in the trunk to clean everything up so the engine compartment will look super clean and smooth there.
This panel, I got some relays I got to put in back here. I got, started to route some of the wiring. We're putting a fuse panel in the back so there's nothing inside the car.
I got everything routed from the back of the car to the front inside. So now we can actually start to figure out what's going where, interior lighting. We need wires for the radio, wires for the heater and AC. All the gauges and whatnot have to be wired up also. So me and him are going to be working on that today.
So on the latest client visit for the C10, the client added wrapping the steering wheel. So we talked about doing it in the brown leather and brown Alcantara mix. So Guido's going to go ahead, tear the old wrap off. We're going to have to go ahead and restitch a whole new wrap. To add a little contrast to it, we're going to have Guido do some gray top stitch to go ahead and finish that piece off.
Today I'm going to start working in the C10 steering wheel. I got it here. I got it from the car. The owner of the car wants sway in the side, and the sides, on the left and the right. He wants leather in the top, leather at the bottom. This is a kind of combination material, like a combo package. What I'm going to do right now, I'm going to place the steering wheel in my homemade fancy custom arm. That's the tool is going to help me to do the template, right? Place it. This is like I'm driving the car right now. Right? Yeah, I'm going to start for the difficult part. That's going to be the side because they have that kind of shape. And then from here, I'm going to start making a template. Right? Once I have the template ready, I'm going to stitching on the side, Once I had the stitching in the sewing machine, I gotta place it again and do the hand stitch. Do the sway first, and then the leather, and the sway and the leather, they're gonna join together in this line. They had to be like a perfect cut. It had to be a perfect join here. At the end, you're gonna see.
The 55 Chevy is moving along quite quickly. As you can see, the bumpers are all mocked up at this point. And we have, we're in the process of just finishing up some of the gaps and some of the body work, but we have our hood. Not sure what happened, but the original hood was lost somewhere. The client didn't have it. The person who sold them the car didn't have, I don't know what happened. But we have a nice new hood that looks great on there. So they're just finishing that up to make sure that that fits great. But we've mocked up already we've had the motor and the trans in. We have a new complete radiator setup that has everything because there's not much room in there. They look like big cars, but they're really not. And we've done the AC mock-up, steering column mock-up. So we've got quite a bit done. We have a lot of parts that are going to be heading our way. And this actually will be ready for paint, I would say within another week or two.
So we just wrapped up the Revolution 1970 C10 pickup truck. This one is absolutely gorgeous. It's going to be heading back to Pennsylvania for a magazine shoot. So we're going to see this one featured in an article. Where do I begin? Let's start at the top. The actual hard shell, one-piece Alcantara headliner, all the way down the A-pillars into that wrap dash with the Resto-Mod air vents. You got the beautifully wrapped Brome racing seats. You have the custom cut carpet. You got these door panels with nice beautiful stitch work. You got that nice brushed trim on the door panel. The center console, which is my ultimate favorite part about this. You have the vents neatly placed in there. You have that sliding compartment that hides the shifter and all the controls such as the window switches and the seat heater controls. You got a compartment. Let's talk about the audio system. Everything is completely hidden in this one. The back wall perforated Alcantara hides the 6x9s and the subwoofers. And then we carried that same design on the side of the console into the kick panel area now. Let's talk about these custom grills made on the Boss laser machine and has a custom etching of the vehicle. And I gotta say, between Tyler and Guido and Julio, this one is absolutely gorgeous. So when you look at everything in totality, as far as the material choices we picked, the audio equipment, the fit and finish, and the design, this is absolutely one of my favorites here at GCD.
It's nice to actually sit after a long week and relax a little bit. I see your C10 left.
It did. A couple of last minute things. The client wanted the steering wheel wrapped, so Guido had to go ahead and wrap that wheel. And then we were waiting on seat belts because there was a kind of miscommunication as far as who was doing the seat belts. So got the belts in, got it mounted, which I feel better about anyway because then nothing has to come apart. I always get like anxiety when things leave and they have to go back to the builder or the client and they got to take stuff apart. I'm like, oh my God, is it going to go back together the same exact way? So it was nice that everything got done. F100's back now. We're getting rid of the bench seat that we just did, putting in 2 racing seats, and then that will leave, and then we start getting the Broncos. We'll get the first Bronco, and then we got 2 more after that. How was your week?
Good. We got the 55 pretty much set. We just have to start it and get it moving to make sure that everything's functioning in case anything has to be moved, any of the hoses, any of the wiring. But the goal is to just make sure everything is exactly where it needs to be. We can take all our pictures, do everything we need to do, label everything before everything comes out, and it goes to primer and then paint. So I'm thinking that that's going to go pretty quick. And it already did go quick. I mean, look at all the metal work. and how fast that went. You know, Bob and Hank made quick work of all of that stuff. So, and Scott has been working diligently on getting everything done. Rich has been helping out, which is wonderful. So, yeah, I mean, I'm feeling pretty good about that being done for car show season, to be honest. And I'm excited to see that bronze on there. I mean, I know you get the little piece and then you hold it up next to the burgundy there, but it's, you know, it's not the
risky.
same. It's a lot of dark. It's a lot of dark, but I think it's going to be cool. And it's nice because it's a different color combination. Everybody does like black and red or black and white or blue and white. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like it's the been there, done that. So this is kind of, it's kind of different outside the box. So I'm looking forward to that. And we know at least the wheels will match the bronze, which was the whole intention. But I'm excited about that. So it'll be pretty cool to see it all finished. And I know Jeff's going to be excited. He's been really excited because so fast has been getting done on it. And yeah, that'll be pretty cool when it's done.
Yeah, and I love doing projects for him because he lets us get creative on things. And I think the exterior is the perfect palette to work with. I think the choices we made for the interior leather and color and design styles, it's going to be it's definitely going to be a stunner out there. It's a beautiful project because it's basically from start to finish, you know, our vision on what this car should be. So I'm going to be very proud to show this one this season. So.
Yeah. So and then we'll be on to the next.
Absolutely.
We have the skill set here to make things. And, you know, there's many a time that Scott's had to make something, you know, for a particular vehicle, like the actual, the intake pipe.
All right, on this 1955 Chevy, I did have to modify the intake going in here on a supercharger because originally it was directly aimed towards the radiator, which is no good. So I wound up getting 2 flanges from ICT Billet, and then I got a piece of 4-inch U-bend aluminum tubing. I wound up cutting that, and I wound up welding the flanges to the tubing to kick out the throttle body off to the side. So now it clears by an inch the top of the radiator, and we have no issues with fitment.
Bob's gonna body work it a little bit, paint it nice. It's gonna look beautiful. But again, you have to be creative. And I think that particular piece in that vehicle is a perfect example of that.
So remember, whether it's restoration work or vehicle maintenance, GCD Auto Studio is the place to contact for all your classic car needs. We'd love to be married to your ride as well.
Like this show? Want more? Then head to WatchPTTV.com, the new 100% free PowerTube TV streaming network. Home of the best classic and new motorsports racing and build shows on the web.